TRW here with Crossbows and Cannon 1. The battle is Pavia, an imperialist army in white against a French army in blue. We are getting ready to start the 0900 hours game turn, which means that we have the fog has just lifted. So the fog has just lifted and the 8 hex visibility range limit is lifted. There's no more. So now from this point on, there are no more scenario special rules in effect. It is rules as written. Definitely some things to say here. So obviously I've gone through the first 4 complete turns. The Imperialist army has moved up and we have made contact, and the first, I should say, one half of the first line of the French left has been routed. And they were routed by these 2 Arquebusier units and this light cavalry unit. So these 2 Arquebusier units and this light cavalry. The Imperialists have lost their first unit, though. This Arquebusier unit here. That also has happened. What's going on here? Okay. My idea for the Imperialist army was to send, because if you'll remember, they start with this line of skirmishers back here. My idea was to push that skirmisher line up aggressively to kind of break up the French left, while pushing the Imperialist left with all this infantry, all this pike infantry here, push them hard against the Imperialist right. Things did not stay quite as cleanly as I would have liked, but just to review, because some orders have been changed. Basically, some advance orders on the Imperialist side have been changed to attack orders. So Bourbon changed from advance to attack. So he's barreling on straight ahead, probably against this infantry first, and then to the second line. Frundsberg, he changed to attack orders as well. He's barreling forward. I was going to have him go after the artillery, but no, I'm going to have him go after the infantry here. Lanoy back here, who is the overall leader for the Imperialist side. I changed him to a stand order. I moved up the Imperialist artillery to the center there. Sane here has an attack order as well, so I also drove him into the French center. Pescara should still have an advance order, and that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that was the general idea. Now, on the French side, no orders change. So all of these formations here start with stand orders, and they still have their stand orders. So stand, and the routed domain as stand. Yeah, no change there. But still, so the first 4 turns of the battle really, because the Imperialists start way back here, and because these pike units only have a movement allowance of 3, they're not moving very far. So yeah, it's really taken 4 turns to get up here, and these guys are still moving up. But this allowed the French to move forward. I mean, all these formations here, this formation still has their reserve order, that formation still has their reserve order. So the far flanks have reserve orders. the first line all have stand orders, and I chose to move the French line up. Now they can move 1 hex a turn with the stand order, and that's how I got them up. I did move them forward a number of turns. The French could have just as easily stayed back, I think, but I also wanted to get into the action. So that's what the thinking was at the start of the game scenario battle, and that's something of what's happened. Let's get back to all these. I mean, this is pike infantry. What is this? This is light cavalry and light cavalry. So light cavalry and pike infantry, driven off by 2 arquebusier units, which, yeah, would be considered light infantry, and light cavalry, and 1 light cavalry unit. What's funny here is that recently I was actually reading a military history, I think it was a journal article, about warfare in this period. So this is 1525? I do believe it's 1525. It is 1525, so first half of the 16th century. And actually this is motivating me to go back and find this article, because if I remember correctly, it had a very interesting table, basically, and the table was showing light and heavy and infantry and cavalry, and which arm was ascendant over which. And what it showed is, the article specifically highlighted which kind of cavalry. Yeah, now I can't remember what kind, but the cavalry was ascendant over the light infantry and the heavy infantry, but the light infantry was ascendant over the heavy infantry. Now, yeah, I probably should check on this, but as a matter of fact, I probably will do that. But the point is that certainly I agree. That the relationship between the arms, when you're talking about the evolution of warfare, certainly over centuries, does not stay static. So just because in war game terms these are skirmishers, and skirmishers, quote unquote, should be cannon fodder and speed bumps and all this other stuff, that really isn't. I mean, I don't subscribe to that, and so I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this situation yet, because I don't know how much of an anomaly this was. So the arquebusier units. The arquebusier units are. It's arquebusier unit firing out 2 hexes. 1 hex short range, 2 hex medium range. So when they fire out 2 hexes, yeah, 50-50 chance of having a result. And then firing adjacent, we're talking 80% chance of having a result. 60% chance of at least 1 step loss. 20% chance of a step loss at medium range. So now these are half-hour turns, and maybe this is meant to represent. Actually, that would be a good question to look at. Does this represent some type of special kind of fire, mass fire or something? But they're pretty strong. And that's interesting. And if that's true, well, one, if it's true in game terms, that's something to factor in. And then two, if that's historically accurate, then that's even better. Yeah, so what it's worth, for what it's worth, this was a diagram. It was exactly how I said, except that I couldn't remember the type of cavalry. And the discussion was the Reiter, or Reiters, R-E-I-T-E-R, cavalry of the period. So understand that particular type of cavalry, but in very broad terms, cavalry, ascendant over light and heavy infantry, but light infantry ascendant over heavy infantry. So if these arquebusier units can rightly be called light infantry, which I do believe they can, maybe it's perfectly correct that they blew back these pike infantry. Now, the light cavalry, I'm not sure about that, but maybe it wasn't so unusual that they blew back these pike infantry. And I wonder if the designer wasn't trying to capture that. Very possible. Yeah, very, very possible. Oh, yeah. One more thing, and I'm going to talk about the rules here, because in this family of games, a lot of this, if you're going to play these games, a lot comes down to the rules. So I finally, especially because of my recent playing of Royalists and Roundheads, I decided that I would finally, so this is Royalists and Roundheads 1, this is, Crossbows and Cannon 1 rules and Crossbows and Cannon 2 rules. This game, Pavia, of course, comes from Crossbows and Cannon 1. So what I decided to do, this is something I've wanted to do for a very long time, is I sat down with the 2 rule books and I started going through them, comparing them, line by line. And wow, I'll tell you what I did, what I wound up doing. One thing I do know is that I always thought that I was supposed to be playing with Crossbows and Cannon 2 rules, even if I'm playing Crossbows and Cannon 1. I cannot say that anymore. So this is what I found. First of all, there are specifics in Crossbows and Cannon 1 that I had never noticed, or I don't remember noticing anyways. For example, this, when talking about the advance command, and this is relevant because, the entire Imperialist army starts with advance commands. They have this, combat units receive no melee combat die roll modifiers for having an advance command. That's been true from the beginning. That's family. That is a definition of the Royalists and Roundheads family of games. But now we have exception. Heavy cavalry receives a +1 modifier in melee when attacking. So even with an advanced command, heavy cavalry still receives a +1 modifier in melee when attacking. And by the way, I wonder if that is summarized on the melee table. Is it? Yeah, heavy cavalry with an advanced command when attacking has a +1 die roll modifier. Okay. So there's that one. And lo and behold, I don't see it. I can't find it in Volume 2 rules. And then there was actually another one. Let me see if I can remember it. But there was another rule. Yeah, I know what it is. In CNC 1, routed units may move during the movement phase, but in CNC 2 they must move. Routed units must move during the movement phase. It's very clear about that in CNC 2, and once they finally route off the board, they are considered eliminated. But you don't have that in CNC 1. I know what I was going to say. All of the adjustments for the attack command and pike units. Again, I can't find the text in CNC2. I mean, I hope it didn't just move to a completely different place, but it's not there. They talk about the Lancers. Anyways, so what I figured out is I'm actually setting CNC2 rules aside, and I will be playing with CNC1 rules because these scenarios, I mean, they must have been developed with CNC1 rules, and it doesn't. CNC2 is not an update of CNC1 as far as I can tell. I always assumed it was, but I cannot say that it is an update of CNC1 anymore. So there's that. I just thought I would mention that because that is my experience. Otherwise, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the interaction of these different formations and types of units.